What's up, everybody? Going down this weekend, we got UFC Mexico City, Brandon Moreno versus Lone'er Kavanagh. This is going to be the full card breakdown and predictions. Listen, I know that this card, right? It's not the greatest card, right? It's kind of carried by Brandon Moreno, but listen, man, a lot of the matchups on this card, I think that we are in for a fun card. I think that there's going to be a lot of finishes, right? At least that's what I'm predicting. And look, when you look at the odds, there are some crazy lines coming into this fight. And I find that very interesting because it feels like this card to me is kind of straightforward. But normally whenever that happens, that just means that there are going to be some disruptors. And on this card, are we going to see that? I feel like we may see a few, man. So I'm actually kind of looking forward to this card, right? We got some prospects on the rise, some fun fighters, and some really good stylistic matchups that I think are going to deliver for a very action-packed night of fights. And I know that it doesn't have all the name value, but a lot of these cards that kind of are where people are like, oh, it doesn't have the name value, they end up being really entertaining. So that's what I'm hoping for this card. And obviously, this is in Mexico City. The elevation, that is something that we have to take into consideration, just like when the UFC goes to Utah. I expect that to be a factor in some of these fights, right? So if someone's kind of known for having some suspect cardio, this is going to be, I feel like, a very tough night for them at the office. So without further ado, man, let's rock and roll right into this thing. We got our first fight of the night, a good one. We got Schultz versus Damian Pinas. So we got the grappler in Schultz, who to me has shown some cardio issues, and I don't like that coming into this fight. Now, what I do love about Schultz is on the feet, not particularly great, right? His striking is kind of chaotic. It's a little all over the place, and a lot of it is really just meant to be serviceable on the feet, be able to close the distance, get a hold of you, take you down, because on the floor, I mean, he's really good. Really good jiu-jitsu, solid wrestling, good trips, good sweeps, right? Does very, very good work up against the fence, right? He was coming over from LFA, finishing people, beating people up on the ground, finding submissions, but goes out there and gives Mansour Abdulmalik, who's an absolute problem in the UFC right now, who's finishing everybody and going out and putting on all these crazy performances. He put up some early resistance, right? And I feel like that's worth something, right? I don't want to hand out a participation trophy, but I think that that's something to value moving forward, considering how good Mansour is, right? And obviously he lost, didn't get the contract, but then he goes out and gets a easy submission victory and then bounces back on the Contender Series, getting that nasty submission over Mario. And listen, I like fighters that come on to the Contender Series. Okay, so they don't get their hand raised. They go and they get a win or two, and then they come back and get the job done. That tells me a lot about a fighter. Shows grit, shows heart, shows tenacity. But I feel like Wes is going to run into some problems in this fight. And while I think that Wes is good, and I do think that he has the advantage when the fight hits the floor, the cardio concerns me, because if you're the fighter that has the grappling edge and you've already shown some abilities to fade as the fight goes, how's that going to work in this matchup against Damian Pinas, who, yeah, I know, even though maybe there's some questions about the takedown defense and what if he's controlled on the ground? How does he handle it? Is he going to be, too scrambly of a little rascal to where he kind of explodes back up and exposes himself to possibly being submitted? I think that is definitely a possibility in this fight, that Schultz can control him on the ground, maybe even find a submission, get a stoppage via ground and pound. Like, I think that this is a very competitive fight here. But I'm going to side with Damian Pinas to get this thing done by first round knockout. And I feel like it's going to be competitive, but it's going to be the fact that I think Wes is going to be surprised by Damian's scrambling ability, because what we've seen from Pinas, I understand that there are some concerns with the takedown defense and, how quickly can he get back to his feet, and is he just going to get controlled on bottom by a guy like Wes that does have good submission abilities to make you pay if you get reckless on the floor. But what we've seen from Damian, right, comes in on the Contender Series and knocks out Vitor Costa with a beautiful 1-2 right down the pipe, man. And I like guys that throw good, clean, straight shots down the middle. And I feel like Schultz is going to have some early success with the grappling, but I feel like Pinas is going to scramble. He's going to get back to his feet, and he is going to put his foot on the gas right away, back Schultz up against the octagon side, and let some of those combinations go. I just feel like this comes down to the speed, the ferocity, and the technicality that Damian provides on the feet, I think is going to edge out Schultz in this matchup. But if Pinas does not get the knockout in round 1 or 2, I can definitely see Wes Schultz, controlling him, winning a decision on the floor, and possibly even finding a submission or softening him up with some ground and pound to get the referee to step in. So I think this is a close fight, but I'm going to favor the guy who, to me, hasn't really shown many cardio issues, has the good striking, has shown that while maybe there's some questions about his grappling, he has also shown that he is capable on the floor. Don't think he has the advantage there, but on the feet, I think there's a massive advantage on the side of Damian Pinas. He's clean, he's fast, he's sharp, and I think he's going to be a little bit too sharp for Wes Schultz. And I think if Wes has a grapple-heavy game plan like I assume, I think that may play an issue being in the elevation with the cardio. Not counting out Wes Schultz, it's a good fight, but I'm going to side with the devastating clean striker and Damian Pinas. I like what I've seen from both guys, but especially on the feet from Pinas. Next fight, we have Erik Silva versus Francis Marshall. This, to me, feels like the UFC is handing Francis Marshall a bone here. I'm having a hard time kind of justifying to myself how I could possibly pick Erik Silva in this fight because he's been around for a while, right? Got the W on the Contender Series, but that was almost 4 years ago. He's been wildly inactive. He's 38, almost 39 years of age, and is essentially a UFC prospect here at 39 in the featherweight division in a lighter weight class? He's shown that he's got a solid ground game, right? Good jiu-jitsu on the floor, some solid takedowns, decent wrestling, decent striking on the feet. But what we've seen over his past 2 fights, this was almost 3 years ago against TJ Brown where he gets subbed. Not a particularly good look. Then he goes out there and has the injury against Muhammad Naimov, which was almost 2 years ago. We haven't seen him. So he's been banged up. He's been very inactive. And I got a lot of questions, so I can't pick him in this fight. And I feel like Francis Marshall, to me, is just leaps and bounds better than Erik Silva, right? So to me, I don't want to just say, Francis is just going to win because I just don't believe in Erik Silva. But Francis Marshall is someone that I've really liked since he's came into the UFC. And what I like about Francis Marshall, we've seen improvements every single fight, I think at least. Right, he's almost 27 years of age. He's kind of growing up before our eyes in the UFC, and he lost a close one to William Gomez. Right, comes in, gets the the stoppage victory over Marcelo Rojo, right, and then goes out there, split decision, lost to William Gomez, who he's shown to be a tricky matchup, rangy, fast, sharp on the feet, hard guy to get a hold of. So I think that's not a horrible loss. And then gets ground and pounded out by Isaac Dalgarian, who when he's actually in there not being suspect, hey man, Isaac Dalgarian's really, really good on the ground, right? So again, no harm, no foul. And then he beats Dennis Bazukia. Didn't love this performance. I expected a little bit more from Francis in that fight. And then almost a year ago loses to Myron Santos by split decision. And I picked Santos to win the fight, and I didn't think he won the fight. I thought that this was a robber. I thought Francis Marshall won. So for me, this is a great bounce back opportunity for Francis Marshall. Maybe the UFC's like, hey man, we got to toss you a bone after that last robber. You took one for the team by giving Myron Santos that W there. But if being for real, man, like Francis Marshall, I think he's better than Erik everywhere. He's stronger, right? He's got the physicality advantage, right? I feel like his striking's better on the ground. I know Silva has shown that he's got solid jiu-jitsu, but I honestly don't think that he's better than Francis Marshall anywhere. So I'm going to side with Francis in this fight. For me, it just kind of comes down to how does he win? Does he stop him on the feet and bang him up with some shots up against the fence, get the referee to step in, soften him up, gets a submission, which is what I think is going to happen? Or does he just pick him apart and win a decision, right? Francis Marshall's shown that he can finish dudes, but I don't look at him as like this ferocious, devastating finisher. So maybe it goes a distance and it's just kind of a Francis masterclass, but I think he's going to hurt Erik Silva. I think he's going to sting him. Erik's coming off the injury. He's been active. I don't know, man. 39-year-old prospect pretty much in the UFC. I can't pick him, man. I think Francis Marshall is much better. And if you're going to competitive decisions with William Gomez and Myron Santos, I think that you should blitz right through Erik Silva. So to me, it's more so how do you think Francis is going to get it done is the real question. Maybe he knocks him out. Maybe he gets a stoppage there. But I'm going to side with a submission. We've seen Silva in some trouble on the floor when guys have a good ground game. So I'm going to side in that aspect here with Francis Marshall. I like Francis a lot in this fight. Next, we have Ernesta Kareckaite versus Sofia Montenegro. I think this is an outstanding fight. And when you talk about WMMA, these are two savages, especially Sofia, right? That fight that she had on the Contender Series, which, basically got her, the contract because that fight was crazy. Right in there against Chairez, that was a dogfight. Both ladies were throwing big, powerful shots. They were, rocking each other, busting each other up. And Sofia's shown that, she's a well-rounded fighter, but she prefers to just move forward, cut the octagon off, and just let big power shots go. Now, while I think that she's the more dangerous fighter here, and I do think if we see a stoppage, I would favor Sofia to get the stoppage. She's got dynamite in her hands, right? She's shown that she's got a pretty good ground game. But the worry that I have for Sofia is her defense is lacking. Her defense is a problem. And what we've seen from Ernesta in her career, she's looked pretty good, right? I know that, one of the downsides for Ernesta, doesn't really possess that X factor when it comes to being able to finish fights. She's not particularly great on the ground. Her striking is very technical. She's a very good athlete. She's got that kind of rangy frame. She's going to have, a little bit of a reach advantage here. She's tall, wiry, and just throws a lot at you. Picking and poking with kicks, and that's what we saw in this crazy fight. I love this fight against Carly Giudice, and I've been very high on Carly Giudice. Now, would I pick Carly to beat Sofia? Probably. Right, so now we're kind of looking at the same aspect here with Ernesta Kareckaite. I just feel like she's a step ahead. I expect Sofia to probably take a round off of Ernesta. I wouldn't be surprised if she puts her in some trouble, right? This was a crazy fight against Carly Giudice, and I've been high on Carly Giudice. She's very good on the feet, and if you're going in there and outstriking Carly Giudice to what I thought this was a toss-up, I could have seen the judges going either way with it. But for me, it's just the fact that Kareckaite's just skilled, man. She's technical. She doesn't really put herself in the line of fire. I know she lost to Barboza, but Barboza's pretty good. Dion Barboza, right? So, and then goes out there, split decision win in Nicole Cagliari. And, she's getting away with these close ones, man, right? But she's got a slight reach advantage. She's going to have to stick and move for 15 minutes. So that worries me a little bit because Sofia's not in there to stick and move and play that kind of game. She's not looking to go tit for tat, looking to move forward, throw these big shots at you. So I wouldn't be surprised if Sofia wins this fight. I actually think that this is a coin flip to me. I feel like this is way closer than what the odds have it out to be. But I'll side with Ernesta in this fight. I'm going to go with the more technical striker, the one that has good lateral movement, good footwork, and doesn't really bring herself in. It doesn't really bring herself into these brawls, which kind of favors Sofia in this fight. So it's going to be Sofia trying to get to the inside, let her power shots go, and then it's going to be Kareckaite looking to kind of move, throw the volume out there, and that's kind of hard to keep up with. If you can't stop Ernesta and drop her in multiple rounds, kind of steal the rounds, I feel like she's just going to kind of get picked apart and picked and poked from range. And Sofia takes damage, man. Right? Her defense isn't particularly good, but I definitely think Sofia's very good. She's got power. Maybe she looks to grapple, put Ernesta on her back, cause her some issues there. So I feel like that would be kind of smart, especially early. Slow down some of the movement of Ernesta. Maybe work the lead leg, right, to then get to your boxing. So it'll be interesting to see. I think that this is going to be a fun fight, but I'm not sure why Ernesta's nickname is heavy-handed. I'm just noticing that's her nickname, heavy-handed, when in reality, watch her go get a knockout here. But I don't think she's that heavy-handed, right? She's kind of a stick and move, pick and poke decision winner, and I feel like that's what she does here. But I think it might be a split decision. I think it's going to be a close one to where one of these rounds, Sofia puts her in a ton of trouble, but then it's going to be Kareckaite sticking and moving and racking up the points on the board. But I'll go with Ernesta in this fight. But I think this is close, man. So if you like Sofia and her power, I would understand in this fight, and she's a dog. All right, next we got Douglas Silva de Andrade versus Javier Reyes. This is an interesting fight here. This is an interesting fight to me because it feels like Javier Reyes should win this fight. And the reason that I say that is he's 32 years of age. He's got a lot of experience for a new kid on the block in the UFC. Coming over from LFA, right, and did lose an LFA 9 months ago, but he's been active, and I like activity, man. Been very, very active. Man, more active than what I remember here. What is that, 4 fights in the span of a year? I like that. I like the activity, but at the same time, sometimes we've seen fighters that get a little bit too active, too many training camps, too many weight cuts, and that can tend to be a little bit of an issue, right? I don't know that that's going to be an issue in this fight. I'm just bringing that to your attention. But coming off of a stoppage win 4 months ago against Justice Torres, and that was impressive, right? Going out there, getting a stoppage. He puts his foot on the gas. He's got a solid ground game, slick jiu-jitsu, nasty submissions on the ground from what we've seen, but he hasn't been in there against great opposition. The competition level hasn't been particularly good, and Reyes is striking. I think it's all right. He's got some power, right? Loads up on a lot of things, kind of leaves his chin up in the air even when he's blitzing in the range. That chin is it's waiting to be tagged. And I don't love that. And he's coming into a fight with Douglas Silva de Andrade, who's almost 41 years of age. 29-6, has been in the UFC for a really long time. I think he has a win over Marlon Chito Vera back in the day, which is actually kind of nuts, the more you think about it. But Silva de Andrade has always been one of these fighters that I feel like is kind of underrated in a way. Like, I'm not saying he's like a future champion or anything, like not like that, but someone that's pretty good, man. Like over his last 5 fights, I mean, he hasn't had the most active run, but he's got some power. Nasty leg kicks. He's always in great shape. I mean, the dude is yoked out of his mind. Shredded, always in great shape, right? He's got a nasty submission game. He's well-rounded. And, most recently, right, losing to Seed Nurmagomedov. Not a bad loss. Beating Cody Stamann by decision. And Cody Stamann's a solid wrestler. I feel like he's probably a better grappler than Javier Reyes, at least with the wrestling, but the submission threat, I would say, is probably on the side of Reyes. And then most recently, almost 2 years ago, losing to Miles Johns. But Miles Johns, I feel like he probably beats Javier Reyes. Maybe. I feel like I still got a lot of questions about Javier Reyes. He's got a little bit of a reach advantage here. He doesn't really use his reach very well. He's not like a real savvy striker where he's sticking and moving, setting traps. Like, he's just kind of a slugger, which is fun to watch. But I don't know, man. Something's telling me that Douglas Silva de Andrade is going to pull off an upset here. Maybe that's crazy. I don't know. He's the dog here, so I'm going to go with the dog. I feel like Silva de Andrade, man, I feel like he's a little underrated. And I know that in the lighter weight classes, when you're north of 40 years of age, that's kind of like a sign to definitely not pick them. So maybe I regret it. But I definitely understand why people are high on Javier because he's got the power. Andrade has been inactive. He's been away for a while. He's older, but he's in good shape, man. He's in good shape. I don't expect the output to slow down. He's got some good power in his kicks. And I feel like with Javier's defense, he's going to leave vulnerability to Andrade being able to tag him, be able to land some good shots, be able to put some points on the board. And I don't know that Reyes' ground game is going to really be an issue for Douglas in this fight. We've seen Douglas' takedown defense and ground game is pretty good. I'll go with De Silva, or Silva de Andrade here. I said De Silva. Well, yeah, his nickname's De Silva. There we go. Okay, so that made me look good when I messed up. Douglas Silva de Andrade by decision. I think he outscores him, stops the takedowns, picks and pokes from range. I think he's able to get it done. Pulls off the upset. I'm not super sold on Javier Reyes. Maybe he goes out there and maybe Reyes does knock him out. Douglas is a little older, got some miles on him, been around for a while, never really been the cream of the crop. Maybe, Reyes is that good and surprises me, but I'm going to go with what I've seen so far, and I like the experience and the well-roundedness of Andrade. I don't like the striking defense of Reyes. That worries me against a guy that could make you pay for that in De Andrade. Next, we got Christian Quinonez versus Kris Moutinho. Kris Moutinho. Don't you guys remember when he stepped in to fight Sean O'Malley and he was kind of the superstar of the night when he got beaten up by O'Malley? And it was like, man, how's this dude eating these shots, right? O'Malley at the time, I mean, O'Malley's still a big name, but he had all the hype in the world. It was like, nobody's beating O'Malley. He's the next McGregor, they're striking and all that stuff. And Moutinho was just walking forward, getting beat up, bloody as can be, walking forward, smiling. Sean O'Malley's kind of looking up at the clock. I think he was looking up at the clock. At least it felt that way, right? And he was dribbling, stunting on him. And Moutinho's just walking forward, landing some shots, starting to kind of do some things late. And then eventually, it went downhill from there. The referee steps in. But it's one of those things where Kris Moutinho just has no defense. He's got no defense. And I would love to see Kris Moutinho get a win in the UFC here. I would love to see it because, things didn't go well in the UFC. But then, in CES, he's stopping people, man. He's looking impressive. He's going out there beating up on people. But at the end of the day, the local pro scene is way different than the UFC. We all know that. And then he steps in there against Malcolm Wellmaker and then just gets, destroyed with a missile from Malcolm Wellmaker. And I know Wellmaker recently lost to Ethan Ewing, but Wellmaker's a problem. He's dangerous. He's powerful. And the reality is Kris Moutinho's path to victory in this fight is really to hope that Christian Quinonez gets tired. And then Moutinho starts to put a pace on him as the fight starts to play out. That is how I see Kris Moutinho winning this fight. Now, am I counting on that? Absolutely not. I'm not going to count on a fighter and their durability and toughness and cardio and just kind of moseying forward to find a way to get it done. I'm just saying that I could see Moutinho doing that. If Quinonez can't get him out of there early and he starts to slow down, I could see Moutinho having one of these moments where he starts to heat up and, everyone's talking about, whoa, Moutinho, man, he was eating all the damage and coming forward and all that and maybe somehow pulled off an upset, but I don't think so, man. I think Kris Moutinho is just not somebody that is UFC caliber. I like him. He's fun every time he's in there, but I don't like picking dudes that have no defense whatsoever. And what we've seen from Christian Quinonez at one time I feel like this guy had some hype, man. Felt like he had some hype, and I understand he's a massive favorite. I mean, a lot of that is because Quinonez is dangerous. He's solid on the ground, good submission skills, explosive striking, and if you got explosive striking, you're going to be a heavy favorite against Moutinho, who's got zero defense whatsoever, but it's been a very inactive career from Quinonez, right? He beat Long Zhao, which I thought was a very good win, right? Gets the stoppage win against Khalid, but, I mean, this is almost 4 years ago, man, right? Beats Kang and, almost 3 years ago, and we haven't seen him in 2 years, and he gets subbed by Hani Barcelos, but we're seeing how underrated Barcelos has been for a long time. He's not underrated really anymore. Everyone knows how good Barcelos is. Quinonez is explosive on the feet. He's got that karate, taekwondo-like footwork, right? Very linear movement, in and out of range, powerful striking, not afraid to take risks, a solid ground game. Like, really, let's be real, where does Moutinho win this fight? He's not a better striker, doesn't have better defense, doesn't have a better ground game. It's really the fact of, is Christian going to gas here at elevation? I don't think so. He's shown that his gas tank's pretty good. He moves well. He's got an efficient style to where, sometimes we see him get a little overzealous to where, he expends a lot of energy, but he's pretty precise in how he's operating on the feet. And I think in this fight, he's going to throw some kicks from range, attack the body of Moutinho, which I think would be a smart investment, try to slow down that forward pressure. And then it's just going to come down to the hands of Quinonez that are going to get Moutinho out of there. I think he's just going to walk him into a big shot. And again, when Moutinho's been losing in a lot of these fights, especially in the UFC, he's getting knocked out. He's getting knocked out, and I know O'Malley's stunning on him, and, Quinonez is not as good of a striker as O'Malley. So I understand that, but when you've taken as much damage as Moutinho and you kind of have that zombie style to where you depend on your opponents getting tired and you just relying on durability, I don't like that against a guy that has some nasty finishing ability in Christian Quinonez, who, I'm not going to say that I was high on Quinonez, but I think he's skilled. I think he's very good. It's been disappointing, the inactivity for, I'm not quite sure the reason per se. Maybe it's injuries. I'm not sure. But I like watching this guy fight, man. He's entertaining. I think the UFC's throwing him a bone here, and I think he goes out there and gets the first-round knockout over Kris Moutinho. I expect a stoppage either way by Quinonez in this fight, and if Moutinho wins, it's from eating a ton of shots, taking a ton of damage, and just kind of zombieing his way to some sort of... That'd be wild, man. Watch Moutinho head down to Mexico City and pull off a massive upset. That'd be wild, man. So I like Moutinho, but... No defense whatsoever. That's a problem. Huge problema against Christian Quinonez. Next, we got Macy Chiasson versus Ailin Perez. I don't know why I said it like that. I didn't like that. Man, I got to be honest. I've been back and forth on this fight. I write down who I'm picking so I don't forget, the method of victory and all that kind of stuff, but I'm not going to flip my pick. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go with my initial reaction. But the more I think about the fight, I do get worried. Now, I am going to pick Ailin Perez by a decision. I'm going to do it. I'm going to pick her by a decision. And do I think that she should be the favorite in this fight? I mean, yeah, because she's riding, all the momentum. And Macy Chiasson, she's kind of just been like a Cheeto Vera, Phil Rowe type of fighter to where... turns it up in round 3, and it's like, where was that in rounds 1 and 2? So you lose the first 2, and now in round 3, you fight like someone stole your lunch money, but it's like, what were you doing for the first 10 minutes? And that worries me about Macy Chiasson, and that's ultimately why I think she's going to lose this fight, is because I think Perez will bank minutes in the first and second round. And I think that she'll put out enough output to be able to stay slightly ahead of Macy Chiasson. But I think Perez in round 3, it's going to get dicey. I think it's going to have people nervous where we're kind of sweating bullets. We're like, man, am I going to get the pick wrong? Perez is getting tagged up a little bit here. Macy's starting to turn it up a notch. But at the end of the day, Macy Chiasson, first of all, how's the weight cut going to go? And I feel like that's something in a way that compromises her performance. But the thing about Macy that makes me nervous is she's tough, man. She's tough, and I know that Irene Aldana, I think, is one of the better boxers in WMMA. I mean, she was able to stop her, right? Got the up kick to the liver, which was nasty, but she subbed Pani Kianzad, who's got solid striking, right? Was able to get the stoppage there, on the floor, and then, going out there and stopping Mayra Bueno Silva, who I know isn't that great, right? Kind of got the duck-like footwork, right? But, I mean, that's a solid win. That's a solid win, and are we picking Perez over Silva? I mean, maybe. Right, I feel like Perez still has a lot to prove, and then she's coming off of a loss to Ketlin Vieira, who's got a good ground game, to be fair. So again, not a horrible loss. Then most recently to Yana Santos, to where, again, same story with Macy Chiasson, the Phil Rowe, Cheeto Vera type of thing. Where is the urgency? Where is it? And for someone that's a slow starter in rounds 1 and 2 and turns it up in round 3, you're going to be at elevation. How's that going to work out? So I think Macy Chiasson's got good takedown defense. And that might be a problem for Perez in this fight, because I think if Perez gets stuck on the feet for long periods of time, I feel like Macy has the advantage there, right? She's got a long, rangy frame. She's got a 6-inch reach advantage here, right? She's 5'11", right? She can stick and move from the outside, mix the shots to the body, good kicks, good lateral movement. And Perez, for me, she's got to get this fight to the floor, right? And that's what we've seen since she's came into the UFC is the ground game is good. She's got good takedowns, good entries. The Jocelyn Edwards win has aged really, really well, because Jocelyn Edwards is out here not just beating people, she's finishing everybody that she's been fighting, recently. And then this win over Lone'er I thought was very impressive to get the submission, right? And then going out there and beating Karol Rosa. So I expect Ailin Perez to win this fight. I think she has enough volume on the feet. I don't think she's the better striker here, but I think that she is going to have some success with the grappling. We've seen Macy, while her takedown defense is pretty good, I think Perez is ground game. She's got the personality, right? Twerking in people's faces, doing all that kind of stuff. You know, she's marketing herself, right? She's someone that the UFC, I think, is clearly trying to push. I think that this is a tricky matchup, though. I think that this is a lot closer than what some people might think. So, I don't know. I'd be curious to see how many people are going to pick Macy Chiasson in this fight. I understand why. Because she's gritty, she's proven, she's been in there with the better competition, but I like the trajectory of what we're seeing from Perez. I mean, she's 31, she's getting better and better. I feel like her striking's actually improved a little bit. She's got the volume, her takedowns are good, some good trips, right? If she gets a hold of you and gets her hands locked, you're most certainly getting taken down, and I think she's going to be able to control Macy, rack up some control time, and eventually just kind of bank the first 2 rounds. Chiasson will turn it up in round 3. We'll have some dicey scares to where maybe Perez is getting stung a little bit, but it'll be enough to get the job done. I'll say split decision. I think maybe round 1 or 2 will be dicey, and Perez clearly wins one of them, and then, I don't know. Something tells me a split decision here, but I'm going to go Ailin Perez getting it done in a close one here. All right, next we got Jose Medina versus Ryan Gandra. How Jose Medina is still in the UFC, I don't know. I don't know if he, behind the scenes is, amazing friends with Dana and the matchmakers. They're boys. He's out with Nelk hanging around, right, rolling some dice. How is Jose Medina in the UFC still, man? Watch him go out here and pull it off. That'd be crazy, man. I like Jose Medina. Man, he shows up every time. He's going to give it his all. But the problem is durability and toughness. If that's the main thing that we're going to discuss as to why we like you and why you're good, you can't really pick that. I don't think, at least. Right, and Jose Medina is one of these guys that, right, I mean, it comes on to the Contender Series and loses to Magomed Gadzhiesulov and got, swept in that fight. It wasn't even close. And Gadzhiesulov it was so horrendous, the UFC said, nah, get him up out of here, man. He wasn't in the UFC for long. They were like, get him up out of here. And then Medina's had the longer UFC tenure, which is wild to me. Right, and then loses to Zachary Reese, who I don't think Zachary Reese is good at all. Right, got beaten up by him. And again, maybe had some moments and things were getting dicey because Zach Reese started to fatigue because he was beating the heck out of Medina. Then gets starched by Atiba Gauthier, but we know how dangerous Atiba is. And then he's getting subbed by Dusko Todorovic. And then on the other side, we got Ryan Gandra, who, this dude is a flamethrower. He's a flamethrower. Doesn't have great technique, gets a little wild ooga booga, right? Forgets the technique, moves forward, throws these massive winging shots. But you got to look out. It's like a helicopter. Or he's got that helicopter style of striking to where the propeller's just kind of, and it's coming in for a landing and it's all over the place. That's literally what Ryan Gandra's fighting style is, now that I think about it. He's the helicopter. He's just going to come in for a landing and the pilot's losing some control and he's just crashing forward, up against the fence, just throwing these wild punches. And if they land, they're knocking anybody out. But the problem is, I have some questions about the gas tank. I believe that he's went to a decision before, so we've seen that he does have the cardio. But to me, coming over from LFA, a lot of fighters that come over from LFA end up doing pretty well. He's coming off of a nasty DWCS knockout over Trent Miller, which was 5 months ago. It was ferocious, man. This guy's got serious power. He's got he's just very physically imposing, strong. His grappling is good. He's got a submission threat. My biggest question is Gandra going to beat up Medina so bad that he gets so tired that Medina has the ghost from Medina's past strikes and pulls like a Gerald Mearshart type of thing, where he's down and losing and getting beaten up, and then Medina just comes back and he's feeding off of the crowd. Everyone's going nuts, and he's waving them on. He's bloody, and Gandra's slowing down, and Medina's peppering him, and maybe Medina gets a stoppage, man. Maybe Medina comes out here and gets his first win. It wouldn't surprise me. Honestly, it would not surprise me, but at the same time, it would surprise me. I can't pick Jose Medina in this fight. I got to pick Ryan Gandra, and I think that he's probably knocking out Medina in the first round. The power's too much. That helicopter-like landing that he comes in for, where he just moves forward, throw these big winging power shots. Eventually, one of those is going to touch the chin of Medina and put him down. And I know Medina had the durability, but when you're eating a lot of shots, you're getting knocked out, you're getting banged around a little bit, it's going to be a problem when you run into a flamethrower like Gandra is just going to throw caution to the wind. But like I said, the elevation, the cardio, if Medina, man, if he could survive the early storm of Gandra, I could see him possibly pulling off some sort of massive upset here. So I'm not, actually, the more I think about it, I'm not going to rule it out. I'm not going to rule it out at all. So to me, it's kind of first round knockout for Gandra, or depending if he's not conservative with the output, he might start to fatigue and slow down a little bit. So how crazy would that be, man? Medina walking him down, bloody, battered, waving him on. Gandra struggling to defend, and Medina just peppering him. Maybe I'm living in fantasy land, but that'd be crazy. I'll be cheering for Medina, actually. I like this guy. I don't know. Maybe I won't be cheering for. I don't know, man. I'll be enjoying the fight either way. But Gandra, he's dangerous. He's for real. I think he'll run into some problems as he starts to kind of pave his way in the UFC because of his defense, but Medina's not making him pay for it. Medina's not particularly good. I don't think he's UFC caliber. Again, durability, cardio, toughness. That's your best attributes. I can't pick you here. Next, we got Santiago Luna versus Angel Pacheco. I like this matchup because I think that Angel Pacheco is someone that a lot of people are going to sleep on in this fight, and I have some concerns about Santiago Luna. Now, I picked Santiago Luna. I think he was an underdog in this fight, actually. I picked him against Quang Le. I picked him to win. I believe that this was at Noche UFC, right? Where he came in there, got rocked early by Quang Le, was in some serious trouble, and then he was no longer in trouble and ended up turning the tides and destroying Quang Le. Now, the reality is Santiago Luna is a guy that has fallen in love with the knockout. And we've seen fighters that are grapplers, and they fall in love with the striking, they fall in love with the knockout, and that's great, and it's fun, and it's exciting, but he's 21 and was 22 years of age. And if you fall too much in love with the knockout and get away from really who I think Santiago is as a fighter, which is a very good grappler, he's got excellent wrestling, very good submission skills, very good control. If he gets away from who he is in this fight, maybe he does go out here and just run him over with the knockout or with the striking and knock him out early. That's definitely possible because Angel Pacheco is very, very hittable. But you're playing with fire a little bit here because Angel Pacheco to me is not a scrub on the feet, man. Like, he's not a scrub whatsoever, right? Lost to Danny Silva, and Danny Silva's a good striker, right? And Danny Silva was not able to put him away. So to me, that was, not necessarily a participation trophy, but that's still kind of impressive to go to distance there. But, you're losing to Callan Loughran almost 2 years ago, where he's been out of the octagon for a while. Now you're coming in here against a young, grooving Santiago Luna. I got to go Santiago Luna in this fight. Now, the question is, what is the method of victory? That's what I'm having a hard time at because Pacheco, I don't think he's been stopped before. And then Luna has not been to a decision, I don't think. All of them are finishes, either submissions or knockouts. So this, to me, is the guy who hasn't been finished, the guy who knows nothing but finishing dudes. So it's like, what do we have here? And I'm going to lean towards the side of Luna getting the second round knockout. But he's got to be careful because Pacheco is one of these guys that fancies himself an in close, in the pocket, slug it out type of war. And if you do that, you're going to get caught. You have the chance of getting caught because Pacheco's ground game's decent. And he's not better than Luna, I don't think. I think Luna's got the clear advantage there. So I think Luna should take the path of least resistance. Take Pacheco down early, tire him, beat him up on the ground with some ground and pound. Actually, maybe that's how he gets the stoppage. Maybe softens him up, finds a submission. To me, this is kind of a harder method of victory to pick, to be honest with you. But I'll lean knockout here. I think that he's going to sting him on the feet, follow him up, get into a top position, start to let some of the ground and pound fly. The referee has to step in. So again, Luna's striking defense is not good. He's the definition of take one to give one. And I know Pacheco hasn't been great, but he does have decent enough striking. And we've seen, Quang Le, I think I would probably pick to beat Angel Pacheco. We've seen that, Quang Le was landing some big shots early. So if you could go straight down the pipe, make Luna pay for that bad striking defense, he can run into some trouble. He's out here dominating people on the ground, subbing dudes, right? He's got good ground and pound. I would like to see Luna grapple in this fight. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's something that I don't see behind the scenes, and Luna's striking is just, it just is that good. We got a small sample size against Quang Lei, and he was in some serious trouble early. He's young. He's in great shape. He's got durability, but you don't want to rely on that so young in your career, man. I think he should take the path of least resistance, take down Pacheco, beat him up on the ground, get the stoppage that way. But I feel like he'll hurt him on the feet, follow him to the floor. The ref will have to step in because of the ground and pound. Maybe he locks in a sub. Maybe we go to decision. Pacheco's durable, but I'm going to side with the finish here in Santiago Luna. I think he wins regardless. Next, we have Imanol Rodriguez versus Kevin Borjas. I love this fight. This is a great fight. This is one of my favorite matchups on this card. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that I really like Imanol Rodriguez. And if you guys have been watching the channel, which, by the way, if you're enjoying this video and you enjoy my content, if you could subscribe, like this video and hype it up, I would greatly appreciate it. Imanol Rodriguez was featured in my prospects video. Or Dark Horses, one of those videos. But either way, I mentioned Imanol Rodriguez is a guy to keep your eye on. And a lot of that is I loved him on Tough. And the one loss that he's had in his career, even though I don't think it counts towards your record here because it's an exhibition, he lost to Joseph Morales, who ended up winning the Ultimate Fighter, submitted Alibi, who just got a win over Ode Osborne. And Morales is really good, man. Was in the UFC. He's got his second run. And he seems more motivated than ever. And in his debut, he destroys Matt Schnell and subs him. And I get it. Who doesn't destroy Matt Schnell? But it was still impressive. And Imanol Rodriguez is working with Daniel Cormier, 26 years of age. And if you want me to be 100% honest with you on The Ultimate Fighter, the fighter that I was the most impressed with was Imanol Rodriguez. His boxing's really good. His striking all around is excellent. He's got good kicks, great timing, rips to the body well. Great shot selection, man. Really good eyes in the pocket. Makes really quick reads and is able to kind of dissect his opponent where they're leaving these holes on the defensive side of things. And his ground game is really solid. And to have some moments against Joseph Morales, I feel like is impressive because I would pick Morales to beat Kevin Borjas, and by way of beating him up on the ground and possibly softening him up and subbing him. Right, and here, Imanol Rodriguez, outside of that Ultimate Fighter, right, he has been so good, dude, and he's knocking people out. And this win on the Contender Series, I can't remember how to pronounce this gentleman's name, so I don't want to butcher it. This guy, I wouldn't be surprised if he's in the UFC at some point as well. Roque. I'm probably butchering it, and I feel bad. I can't remember his name, but either way, this dude is super skilled, man. Very, very, very skilled. I wouldn't be surprised if he's in the UFC at some point. And he just got ran over by Imanol Rodriguez. That's how good Imanol is. And then on the other side, you got Kevin Borjas, who's been around for a while. And Victor Diaz, he beat him on the Contender Series, right? Loses to Joshua Van, but that's now the champion in the flyweight division, right? Loses to Alessandro Costa, who's got, a solid striking game, good leg kicks. Beats Ronaldo Rodriguez, which was kind of his, claim to fame in a way, even though he's not famous. I'm just saying that was his big wow. He beat Ronaldo Rodriguez, who's a super overhyped guy, right? And then, loses to Sumidarje, who's a very good striker. If you're getting outscored and picked and poked apart by Sumidarje, I'm sorry you're not beating Imanol Rodriguez. And I know that this is a big moment, maybe the adrenaline dump and, all the nerves of being in the UFC, the excitement in Mexico. Maybe that's something that plays a role for Imanol. I don't think so whatsoever, man. I think Imanol Rodriguez is going to come out here and have a statement-like performance. I think he's knocking out Kevin Borjas. And Kevin Borjas is dangerous, man. He brings it every time. He's super fun to watch. And these Peru fighters, man, are savages. Absolute savages, right? I think it was Daniel Marcos, right? They got some savages, man, in the UFC. So we got savage on savage here. Kevin Borjas is a dog. He's a savage. He's going to move forward, throw caution to the wind, look to get in the face of Imanol. And that's going to be important. Attack the legs of Imanol. Give him stuff to think about. Weaponize your experience. Put that striking on him. See if you can sting him early. Put some of that doubt into the mind of Imanol. Right? I feel like that'd be very smart of Kevin in this fight. But Rodriguez working with Daniel Cormier. DC's very high on him. Imanol's a complete fighter. His boxing is what pops out, but he is a well-rounded guy. He's got nasty striking. I think he mixes up the shots well, rips to the body, sets up a nice overhand over the top. I'm going Imanol by masterclass performance leading into a KO. If he doesn't get the KO, he will win a convincing decision by way of just way more skilled than Kevin Borjas. I like Borjas. He's dangerous, but I don't think he's on the level of Rodriguez when it comes to the skill. Imanol's that good, man. Next, we have Edgar Chairez versus Felipe Boons. This is a good fight. This is a good fight here because Edgar Chairez is one of my favorite underrated fighters in the UFC. I feel like Edgar Chairez is unbelievably underrated. And I feel like he's actually one of my favorite flyweights too. I love watching him fight. He's a dog. Every fight that he's in is entertaining. He's ferocious on the feet. He's violent. Valencia, man. Every time you talk about Edgar Chairez, violence is the way that I would describe this dude. He's durable. He's tough. He's going to move forward, throw big power shots at you, nasty leg kicks. Right? He's got a solid frame for the weight class, 5'7", 71-inch reach. And he's well-rounded, right? On the feet, he can get it done. On the ground, he can get it done. His wrestling's all right. His submission game's really, really good. And the losses that we've seen are to Tatsuro Taira and Josh Van. And he was giving Josh Van some problems. Now, I picked Josh Van in that fight, and that was also short notice for Joshua Van. And I think on a full camp, Van would probably win that even more convincingly. But I didn't like how Van was having success offensively with the grappling against Chairez. I like that we saw Van's improvement, but I'm saying in terms of Chairez getting kind of held down by Van, that worries me a little bit because I think that Boons is more of a grappling specialist, but most recently going out there and running over CJ Vergara, right? And then against Daniel Lacerda getting the sub, like Edgar Chairez is a dog, man. He's a savage. And look, I know Felipe Boons, right? You can kind of say the same thing as well, right? Gets stopped by Josh Van, but again, it's Josh Van, right? Beats Johnson via armbar, gets dominated by Rafael Estevam, who's looking like a problem in this weight class. He's a very good grappler, good submissions, right? Can just control dudes on the ground, flows very well. So not bad losses either. Both guys have had, explainable losses to good opposition. But for me, this comes down to a grappling-based Felipe Boons who's going to be dependent upon the jiu-jitsu, who on the feet to me is meh. And I think Chairez is better on the feet and a better overall MMA fighter. That is why I am picking Edgar Chairez. Bias to the side because I really like Edgar Chairez. I think he's getting this one done. I really do. I think he's getting a submission. I think that he's going to put the work on Boons early, tag him up on the feet. Boons is going to start, kind of flopping around on the deck like a fish with the grappling. And then we're going to see Chairez eventually rock him, follow him to the floor, and lock in a submission. Now, if Felipe comes out and is able to have some success with the takedowns, right, and get the wrestling game going, put Chairez on his back, I could see Felipe getting caught in something as well. Edgar is ridiculously dangerous everywhere he goes. It's why I love watching the guy fight, man. He's a dog. He's a savage. He's the definition of violence and danger. I'm going with that dude, Edgar Chairez, in this fight. I think he wins regardless. Maybe this goes to a decision. We see kind of a grappler's delight back and forth on the feet. Maybe Chairez does KO him, land a shot. Felipe's very hittable on the feet, but I'm going to side with the better overall MMA fighter, which to me is clearly Edgar Chairez. I like Edgar a lot, man. I think he gets it done. Daniel Zellhuber versus Bob Green. Wow. If you ask me about this fight, like 2 years ago? However long Zellhuber, yeah, that was right, okay. He's been in the UFC for a while now, man. 26 years of age, almost 27, kind of growing up in the UFC. I would have been like, Daniel Zellhuber, I don't know if he's beaten Bob Green. To be honest with you, even when Zellhuber, prior to these losses, because Bob Green, in his prime, which I guess he's not necessarily in his prime 2 years ago, he's slick. He's slick, man. Sticking and moving, having a close fight with Rafael Fiziev. Slipping and ripping, right hands down, taunting. Low output Zellhuber, who loads up on a lot of his shots. I would have been I would have thought about Green, especially if he was a big underdog. I would have thought about Green to win that fight. And now we're at a point where Bob Green is almost 40, and I still think that Bob Green could win the fight. And that, to me, is just incredibly alarming. How did we get here, Daniel Zellhuber? How did we get here? A guy that's winning decisions, submitting Christos Giagos, right? And then he's beating Francisco Prado, and it's like, okay, and then he's going out there and losing. To me, this was the fight of the year. No harm, no foul at Sphere against Esteban Ribovic. It was a dog fight. It was a war. It was a great fight. But at the end of the day, Esteban Ribovic has zero defense, and he's not a slick guy whatsoever. He's very straightforward, moves forward, slug in the pocket. And again, it was a great performance by both guys, but you're getting into a war, and then you're coming out here and this fight was not close against Michael Johnson. It just wasn't. And I understand Michael Johnson is almost 40. He's defying the odds in the lighter weight classes. Michael Johnson has not lost his speed whatsoever. And he's better defensively outside of getting clobbered with a big overhand right or getting taken down and smothered on the ground. Michael Johnson's a difficult guy to deal with. Good footwork, nasty speed, good power. He had Zellhuber in a ton of trouble. And I feel like that is a major red flag coming into this fight. But if I was going to pick Michael Johnson or Bob Green in a fight between those two, I would pick Michael Johnson to knock out Bob Green. And that is a lot to do with the fact that while Bob Green, yes, he got a win over Lance Gibson, and I picked him to win this fight, and it should not have been a split decision. Bob clearly won. He's getting knocked out a lot, right? And again, Mauricio Rufy, one of the most dangerous strikers, I think, in the UFC right now. We saw that by him knocking out Fiziev, right? Gets subbed by Paddy Pimblett, but again, we see how good Paddy is, right? Beat Jim Miller at 300, but Jim Miller, he's older, stuck in the mud, right? Not a lot of movement, kind of there to be hit. Got brutally KO'd by Jalen Turner. And a lot of these fights recently where Bob's losing, he's getting knocked out. Does Daniel Zellhuber knock him out? He should. He should. And I'm telling you right now, if Daniel Zellhuber loses this fight, it's going to be bad, man. He has to win this fight. He has to win this fight. It's going to be bad in terms of I don't know what the UFC is going to do because that's 3 in a row, and they're tossing him a bone here, and he's a massive favorite. And Daniel Zellhuber at no point in his career should be a favorite that big. I don't care that Bob Green's almost 40. And I understand when you have that elusive, hands-down style, slick, taunting, the game that Bob plays. I get it. To where maybe Daniel Zellhuber catches him with a high kick. He's got, powerful kicks. His boxing is okay, but he's slow. He's slow, and he's not very twitchy, right? He's got a big frame for the weight class. He's 6'1", 77-inch reach. He's going to have a 6-inch reach advantage here. And I don't love that for King Green, who keeps his hands low and is bobbing and moving, like to where maybe Zellhuber, if him and his team are smart, they're going to throw some boxing combinations and hide a head kick behind it. That's what I would do, and I feel like if he does that, he gets a knockout. But given what we've seen from Zellhuber, he's not exactly a finisher. And maybe he does. If there's ever a fight that he's going to get a finish, it's this one. I could see him knocking out Green with a head kick, timing him with the boxing, maybe getting a takedown, subbing him on the ground because Zellhuber's very well-rounded. But I am going to pick Daniel Zellhuber here. But I'm going to say decision. Maybe he gets a knockout. Maybe he gets a submission. But what I've seen from Zellhuber recently, I haven't liked it. I don't know what's going on. I feel like his confidence is shaking a little bit. And I know that you could say that opposition, like Esteban would probably beat Green. And I get you could play that game. It's MMA math. I get it. But I've lost a little bit of the hype on Daniel a little bit. And I feel like he kind of needs to get that back. And this is one of those fights where the UFC is giving him a bone and saying, listen, if you can't beat Bob Green, what are we doing here? And I feel like that's why Daniel Zellhuber is in this position. This is a must-win. He needs to get this done. Bob Green is way out of his prime. I mean, it's crazy because I've been watching Green for so long, man. I mean, dating back to the early days, and, it's crazy seeing, Bob Green still in the game, and he's still dangerous. I know he doesn't have a ton of power, but, I mean, he could dot you up, man. And if you let him get into a rhythm and, he starts tagging Zellhuber early, and Daniel's struggling with the speed because he's not particularly fast, and Green hits that flow state, I could see Green definitely going out here and winning this fight, especially, if Zellhuber wants to be gun shy. And I think that that's very possible. We've seen that from Zellhuber. When he gets tagged, he starts to forget about the output, starts to kind of just get into a staring contest. Can't do that in this fight. So, man, the rate that we are at now with Daniel Zellhuber, this to me a couple fights ago would have been like Zellhuber by KO. And now I'm like, I don't know. Maybe that's a little wild, to be this kind of down on Zellhuber, but I feel like it's warranted, man. In no way should he be a massive favorite in this fight. I know Green's getting knocked out, but Jalen Turner, Rufy, all those guys probably knock out Zellhuber, or they at least beat him up. So Bob Green, he's slick. Snake charms you, right? Kind of, sticking and moving. And I know he knocked out Grant Dawson, which was a crazy win, but for the most part, he's not a knockout artist. We saw him dot up Jim Miller. Daniel Zellhuber moves better than that. He's got some good kicks, not super fast. Bob Green's got a significant speed advantage. So it's going to be on Zellhuber to get to the inside, put in some work. But I'm going to go with Daniel Zellhuber. Long boxing combos, front kicks up the middle, kicks to the body, attacking the leg, setting up the high kick, maybe times him with one, catches him, finds a submission. But I'm going to say decision. Daniel Zellhuber, I'm going to pick him to win. I'm going to give him that much, but I'm not going to say by a finish because I need to see more. So, all right, next we got Marlon Chito Vera versus David Martinez. Marlon Vera, Chito. I like Chito a lot, man. I'm a big Chito Vera fan. I have been for years. I love Chito Vera. I like his energy. I like his swag. I like his vibe. I like his striking when he decides to actually throw. He's got devastating power that we don't see a ton of, right? When he knocks out Frankie Edgar, I think it was a front kick, right? Beating up Rob Font, right? I think that was Rob Font, where it was a 5-rounder in the Apex, beating him up, nasty spinning back kicks, high kicks, knocking out Dom Cruz, timing him, while Cruz is slipping with a nasty head kick. Beating Sean O'Malley, which again, turns out that was definitely a fluke, right? Hitting the perennial nerve, all that kind of stuff. And look, Chito Vera, he's technical. His boxing is good, his knees. He's the more dangerous fighter, I think, here in terms of the power, right? In terms of the ferociousness, right? And Chito Vera can fight all day long, right? This guy just runs miles on miles. But he fights like he's got miles and miles and miles to go, and you can't do that. You just can't do that. Maybe in a 25-minute fight, but even in a 25-minute fight, Chito acts like he's got 50 minutes to work with. And in a 15-minute fight, he acts like he's got an hour to work with. This is one of those guys that just has zero urgency. And in these past couple fights, right over his past 5, loses to Corey Sandhagen. Whatever judge gave that to Chito Vera, I think Corey explained it where it was something like they had beef or the judge didn't like Corey. I don't remember. There was something weird with that. I remember hearing why that kind of happened or whatever. That judge, that was not a split decision. That was, I thought, a 50-45 by Sandhagen. Beats Pedro Munoz. Okay, Munoz is significantly fallen off. Loses to O'Malley, and which he shouldn't have gotten the title shot, but they did it. They were trying to give O'Malley a layup, and there was history there, trying to get one back on Chito. I get it. But then he loses to Davis Figueiredo, gets dropped for the first time. And Chito Vera's never been stopped. He's as durable as they come, moves forward. He's got the power. And then he loses a close one to Amin Zahabi. And I picked Chito in that fight, and honestly, I thought it could have went either way. And if you're losing to Amin Zahabi, I think Amin's good, but I think David Martinez is better. So while Chito's got the reach advantage, he's a little bit taller, he's going to have the physicality advantage. He's slow. And he's always been slow. And he does have the power to, maybe if he can catch Martinez, invest in the leg kicks, rip the front kicks up the middle, get the boxing going. He definitely has Chito has the power to put anybody away in this weight class. But I feel like if Chito's going to win, that's how he wins. I don't think he's out voluming David Martinez, who's the Energizer Bunny in the bantamweight division. And to me, David Martinez looks like a flyweight in terms of the speed and the movement and just the output. Right? And he made his debut, or didn't make his debut, but on the Contender Series, beat Xavier Franklin. I thought that was his debut. Or no, it was a big step. He stepped in, right, against Rob Font, right? He beat Simon Oliveira. That was impressive. Wasn't it that he stepped in or something against Rob Font on shorter notice? I can't remember exactly. But either way, I picked David Martinez to win this fight. And for the reasons that we saw, Rob Font's a good boxer. He's going to move forward, but Martinez's boxing to me is okay, right? He's got good speed. He floats in and out of range really well, darts in and out. He's got really, really fast kicks. His footwork is really good, and that's going to frustrate Chito. It's going to frustrate Chito. It is. Moving in circles, dancing around, throwing a bunch of kicks, not being a stationary target. Chito kind of needs a stationary target in order to be able to knock you out for the most part. Or he backs you up along the octagon side, slows down your movement, cuts you off, and then eventually kind of walks you into a shot, which that's definitely possible. And I feel like if Marlon's going to win, that's how he wins. But I can't pick Chito Vera here, man. And I think he's going to lose a decision. And I feel like it's going to be one of those things where he may win a round later on, but it's just going to be too much. It's going to be too little, too late. And I feel like Chito Vera in these past couple fights we've seen, especially in the Figueiredo fight, he came out more aggressive, right? Getting on the front foot, backing him up right away, but not throwing anything. And it's just so frustrating to watch Chito Vera, man. I love watching him fight. I like Chito, but the output is just not there. He's too hesitant, waits too long to get going. He's a slow starter, and I feel like when fighters are slow starters, it's kind of hard to break that habit, especially when you're 33. But again, while that's young, Chito's been in the game for a long time, man. A really, really, really long time. So he's not, I don't look at him as 33 in fight years, right? So he's not someone, it's going to be kind of hard to teach an old dog new tricks per se in terms of the urgency. And yeah, he comes out a little bit more aggressive, but not enough. Not enough to where he falls behind, walks into some shots, right? The Zahabi fight, Zahabi is not nearly as fast as David Martinez. And I know Zahabi's got that kind of weird Philly shell, awkward style, but David Martinez has a ton of output. He's a smart fighter. He switches stances well. Both guys are very, very fun to watch on the feet. They switch stances. They do switch. I think I said that. Yeah, switch stances very, very well. They mix things up. The power on the side of Vera. So if he wins, I feel like it's a knockout. But I'm going to side with David Martinez. I think his footwork is going to frustrate Marlon. He's a smart fighter. He's not just going to scrap in the pocket with Chito. He's got to watch for the head kicks because Chito's very, very good. I feel like this is a striking fight. I don't feel like we're going to see a ton of grappling, but I'm going to side with the speed and the versatility of David Martinez here. I think he runs circles around Chito, Just throws shots from range, tagging him up with the boxing, the kicks, outscores him, tit for tat, poking, fencing type of performance by David Martinez to where he gets it done on the scorecards. I think Martinez is really good. I was impressed by what we saw against Rob Font. Last but not least, we have arrived at the main event. If you guys are enjoying this video, if you could do me a favor, please give it a like, hype the video, and if you're new, if you could subscribe to the channel. We're on the road to 10K, man. I would greatly appreciate it. All right. Brandon Moreno versus Lone'er Kavanagh. I got a lot of thoughts about this fight. So the good news for Kavanagh, well, not good, but he knocked out Charles Johnson, which in theory means if you get knocked out late in the fight while having early success against Charles Johnson, you will go on to be a world champion. That's what happened with Joshua Van. Remember Charles Johnson knocked him out? And now we're kind of in the same situation where you get knocked out by Charles Johnson, and now, well, Van had to fight a couple fights first, but now Kavanagh is stepping in on a shorter notice. He was still preparing for a fight. I think it was coming up soon or whatever. So he's a guy that's been training, and he's constantly in the gym. 26 years of age, almost 27. And this, to me, feels like that Joshua Van, Brandon Royval moment where Van steps in on short notice against one of the big three, right? I call the big three Brandon Moreno, Pantoja, and Royval. They've been around for forever. They've been at the top of the division for years. And they're the OGs. They're the real OGs, man. And we saw Van take it to Brandon Royval. Now, the difference in that fight was it was a 3-round fight. And it was not at elevation. And for me, if this was a 3-round fight, maybe I can get behind the idea of Kavanagh somehow. I could try to kind of swing it and paint this picture for you that Kavanagh wins. I feel like Kavanagh is already, before the fight even begins, at such a massive disadvantage. You just got knocked out by Charles Johnson 5 months ago, to where before that, I was high on Lone'er Kavanagh. this knockout on the Contender Series was outstanding. He's got really good boxing. Right, he's very slick on the feet. His timing is really, really good, right? The Jose Ochoa win, that's a great win. Jose Ochoa is dangerous, man. That was a good fight. And then beat Felipe dos Santos. He's won some good fights, right? And then, okay, he's having some early success, but then he started to slow down. Does he have a great ground game, at least offensively? Not particularly. Is it better than Brandon Moreno? Absolutely not. He's not better than Brandon Moreno at grappling, okay? So he's got that going against him. Is he a better striker than Brandon Moreno? You could make the argument that early on, before he gets tired, Kavanagh could find moments. His boxing is good. He's got the power. He's slick. He's fast. But the one thing I don't like about Kavanagh is when he throws these big winging power shots, he tends to forget about the technique a little bit to where the hands drop and there are windows of countering opportunities. I don't like that in a Brandon Moreno fight. So that's the technical side of things. But again, where Kavanagh is already at disadvantages is you just got knocked out and you're coming into a fight here to where people are like, why'd Kavanagh get the opportunity? And I was kind of one of those guys, but realistically, it's going to be hard to find a replacement to step in because it was supposed to be a Sual Mabayev where I would have picked Moreno to win that fight anyway. But now you're at elevation. You were struggling with the gas tank against Charles Johnson, a guy that has good cardio and is going to put it on you, and you got stopped. So now you're at elevation where your cardio is already a problem and you're 26 and you're getting thrown back in there in a massive step up in competition. This is by far the best fighter that Kavanagh has fought. And I understand that Moreno maybe hasn't looked like himself, right? But again, who's he fighting? Pantoja, Brandon Royval, where I'm pretty sure this was in Mexico, wasn't it, last time? And it was like, what happened to Brandon Moreno? It looked like he didn't show up. Right, and then he goes out there and reminds everybody and stunts on Amir Albazi and beats him up. But we're seeing how overrated Albazi is. Right, and then Urseg, it wasn't really, he beat him, but I wasn't like, wow, Brandon Moreno, and it's kind of just been like, where's Brandon at? He's 32. He's been at the top of the game for a while, and, it's kind of a weird performance against Tyra, right? But again, look how good Tyra is, and I thought that this was an early stoppage, but either way, Tyra put him in a bad spot. To me, if you ask me who has the better cardio, it's Moreno. The better grappler, Moreno. The better striker, Moreno. So how does Kavanagh win the fight? By clipping Brandon Moreno with a shot and getting him out of there early. Maybe Moreno, he just really has lost his sauce, and he allows Kavanagh to go in here, and Kavanagh's gas tank is just unbelievable. The elevation doesn't bug him, and he's just sticking and moving and picks him apart and, wins a decision or somehow knocks out Brandon Moreno. That would be one of the most impressive things we've seen in the UFC, I feel like, in a while. Like, seriously, if he could stop Brandon Moreno, that'd be crazy. But it ain't happening. It's not happening, at least I don't think so. I think that Brandon Moreno is going to knock out Lone'er Kavanagh. I think it's going to happen in the third round, and I think it's going to be kind of similar to the Charles Johnson fight, but quite different because Brandon Moreno is obviously way better than Charles Johnson. Brandon Moreno is very heavy on the lead leg, so it would be wise for Kavanagh to attack the lead leg, but Kavanagh's gas tank is already an issue. And if you're throwing, these big, massive missiles right away and you're trying to put it all into finishing Brandon Moreno, which maybe is his best route, knowing that I'm probably going to get just picked and poked apart for 25 minutes. I don't want to go out like that. Let me just try to knock him out. If he does that, he's going to fatigue. But either way, I see Kavanagh slowing down. I see Moreno being smart, hiding behind that high guard, that little rockin' patented Brandon, Moreno rocker, back and forth, kind of shuffle with the boxing. He's got a nice clean jab, really, really good high guard, active, with the kicking game as well. And we saw, I think it was the Kareckaite France fight where he landed that nasty kick to the body, a little switch kick and was able to put him down. I smell something similar in this fight. I smell Brandon Moreno getting the jab popping to affect the vision of Kavanagh, bust up the nose a little bit, swell the lips, affect the breathing. And then now you're at altitude or at elevation to where you're going to be having issues with the cardio probably already. Now you got your face busted up. You're in trouble already. You're not going to out-grapple Moreno. You're going to be starting to throw these big shots. You're going to leave these, these windows of countering opportunity. I wouldn't be surprised if Moreno gets him out of there early. I would be shocked if this goes the distance. I would. I'd be shocked if Kavanagh wins. I'd be shocked if he, got a knockout. That'd be crazy. That'd be the most shocking thing to me about this fight. I like Kavanagh a lot. I think he's got a bright future. This, to me, is a little bit of a disservice in my eyes by the UFC. They needed somebody to step in. He's hyped up. They're hoping maybe for that Joshua Van Brennan, Royval type of thing. This is not the same situation. This isn't a 3-rounder. It's a 5-rounder. You're at elevation. You already have cardio problems. This is a disaster for Kavanagh, in my opinion. And I like him. I like the kid a lot. I like Moreno a lot. Obviously, an OG. I'm a massive Moreno fan. But bias aside, I think he really wins. I mean, his boxing's way better in terms of the technicalities. He's hard to hit clean. He's crazy durable, great chin, good grappling. So to me, Brandon Moreno kind of has every way to win this fight. I think he tags him on the feet, rips nasty combinations to the body, which again, taking the wind out of the sail, busting up the face with the jab, ripping to the body. That's a recipe for a nightmare where the cardio is already going to be an issue. You're going to be getting ripped to the body. That's going to take wind out of the sail, slow you down with the jab as well. Brandon Moreno, high-level striker, high-level grappler. Maybe hurts him, takes him down. I feel like that'd be smart, actually, for Moreno early to grapple, wear on him, fatigue him, maybe take his back, find a sub. I could see that. Maybe the KO happens earlier, but I'm going to say Brandon Moreno by knockout. I think it's going to be via ripping to the body. Maybe it's a kick. Maybe it's a punch. I think he's going to be very smart in his approach here against Kavanagh and put him down. Referee steps in, gets a stoppage. Maybe it's one of those situations where he hurts him, takes the back, subs him. Could see that as well. But I'm going to say knockout. I think the body work is going to pay off for Moreno in this fight. His boxing's really good. People forget, man, Brandon Moreno, one of the best in the world. I think part of the big three, Brandon Moreno stays at the top, man. Like Moreno, a lot like Kavanagh. Just feel like this is a really rough matchup for him stylistically. And then it's a big step in competition, plus all the elements that I mentioned with the elevation, cardio problems, and Moreno's better everywhere, and it's a 5-rounder. So I'm going Brandon Moreno. But if you guys enjoyed this video, do me a favor, please give it a like. Let me know what you think down in the comments. And if you are new, if you could sub, I would greatly appreciate it. I'll see you next time.